This session, in fact, as you often say, to get the right answers, one needs to ask the right questions, which is why we're in the able hands of Sumita Karir, Deputy News Editor, ET Now. So, Sumita, firstly, I'd like to invite you on stage so that you and I can go ahead and invite your panelists. Can we have a round of cheer because she's responsible in extracting all the relevant perspectives from the leaders. Thank you, Sumita, for joining us. We got a very nice fanfare for you as well. But with that, let me go ahead and invite our leaders as well. First up, I'd like to please invite Dr. Sandeep Kumar, Chief Executive Officer, L&T Semiconductor Technologies Limited. I'd like to further invite Shreehas Tambe, CEO and Managing Director, Biocon Biologics. Sanjay Jain, Group Chief Executive Officer, PDS Limited. Suhas Donthi, President and Chief Executive Officer, Emmvee Group. And Yashpal Sharma, Chairman and Managing Director, Skyways Group. We would love to have the applause louder than the music as well. Come on, let's hear it for the leaders, and then let's hear it from the leaders. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time out and being here with us at the ETGBS as part of this panel. And we're looking to very interesting insights from all of your sectors. These are very different sectors that you all operate in. So let me begin with you first, Dr. Sandeep Kumar. You're in the business of semiconductors. This is something that has undergone massive change. The government's policy towards semiconductors and sort of manufacturing semiconductors here in India has seen a massive change, even as we're seeing global disruptions happen in the space of geoeconomics, and of course semiconductors are a huge part of that. Give us an understanding of really how do you see this sort of a disruption shaping up, and where do you see India's role playing out, because we have two powerhouses, the US and China, who are very, very aggressive in this domain.
So I think COVID made everybody aware of semiconductors. The supply chain disruption caused people, even cars could not be purchased, big companies, big businesses, and now even common people know what is a semiconductor. It's been around for a while. It started back in the 80s, and at this point, I think India's move is just the tip of an iceberg. There is a lot more to do. But you have to start somewhere. So the government incentives, which are the best, actually globally, nobody gives 75% capital expenditure, 50 plus the states. That has jump-started the manufacturing. But there is an element that has to get now started, which is what will you make in those factories? And so there has to be and the government understands that, and they're pushing, so that is the next thing. What are the products that you will make in those factories? And that push is coming, and I think that push, if you think about it, whatever is in the manufacturing, the products actually generate 3x the revenue. Because something that is made, you sell it. So that is an even bigger push, and we will change. This is a long journey, but we will get there. Absolutely,
this is a long journey, and a start has been made, and we are doing rather well, especially in terms of the kind of investments that we've invited Dr. Sandeep Kumar. Let me come to you, Mr. Shreehas Tambe. When we talk about manufacturing, how can India gain competitiveness? Because the initial aim of the government was to essentially make sure that manufacturing is 25% of the GDP, but its share actually has decreased by 1% or so.
First up, good morning to everyone. Thank you for having me on the panel. What an inspiring speech by the Honorable Minister this morning. The confidence, the emphasis on supporting India's future growth is so very encouraging for the industry. So your question in terms of how do we focus on becoming the manufacturing capital of the world, if I can rephrase or paraphrase your question, I think there's been tremendous progress that we've made in the last decade or more in terms of how India has moved forward. The three main things that I would say that are very critical for any country to progress is policy stability. And we heard the Honorable Minister talk about it. And we've seen that's been very, very helpful in terms of how things have progressed, because that allows capital to make steady investments in any country. That's one of the first steps. But after that, the next important step is to actually talk about getting the right technology, because you can keep making product, but it can become obsolete very quickly. And we just heard my fellow panelists talk about how next-gen technology is coming in, and that's coming in because you got policy stability, and then you moved forward to making technology investments. No different than in the biopharma industry where I come from, where investments have moved forward with the intent of moving from cost leadership. India has always been known as the pharmacy of the world, right? And we moved from that to saying, how can we become the capability leader overall in that space? So move that needle from being a cost leader to a capability leader, and that requires that investments, not in scale alone, you talked about manufacturing, but in advanced technology and kitting people, which is what is about Skill India, which is about making sure that you have the talent that can apply the technology with the policy stability that you've got and connect these dots. My sense is I'm quite bullish in terms of how this is progressing. We've made investments of over 10,000 crores in the last decade, just in manufacturing and in India, to see that India becomes not just the manufacturing capital for biopharmaceuticals, but actually becomes known as the knowledge capital and the innovation capital as we evolve from just being about scale and cost arbitrage to actually becoming more innovation and knowledge leadership in the world.
Absolutely, Mr. Tambe. You talk about investments, you talk about skilling. So let me ask you a follow-up question, and then I'll come to the rest of the panelists. When you talk about investments, while the recent union budget, if you see, we've seen a capex push, right? I mean, it's crossed 12 lakh crores, and we've seen a capex push by the government consistently over the past many years, especially after COVID. But why is it that private capex remains still muted? I mean, there is investments that's coming in from very, very limited number of sectors, but overall, corporates are still feeling, the private sector is still sort of feeling hesitant. Why do you think that is so?
I mean, from an industry perspective, we want everything yesterday, and we want it to move faster, which is good. I mean, to push pace is the right thing. But I do want to compliment the finance minister, not just for presenting it for the 9th successive time, but the union budget actually does outline and recognize the fact that India is past just the communicable diseases that we used to talk about. It recognizes that India is changing. Communicable diseases are important, but non-communicable diseases are on the rise. And we need to see that that is supported and encouraged. Just before the budget, I should point out, there was an outlay of an R&D fund, R&D initiative fund of 1 lakh crores, which is very, very substantive. And the union budget actually outlined another 10,000 crores, which was under the Biopharma Shakti initiative, recognizing that the standard of care has shifted to biopharma and biologics drug rather than the older products that we used to have in the past. I think the recognition that this is happening, even though the capital outlay itself may be modest to begin with, which is 10,000 crores over 5 years, is a great beginning. I consider this as a very significant step, that the acknowledgement that something needs to be done here. And I believe that that initiative will then signal to private sector investment and industry that given that there is acknowledgement by the budget and through the budget by the government, that there will be more private sector investment coming in. And we've been talking about it, and we've actually not just talked about it, but we've walked the talk by investing 10,000 crores. And I'm sure there will be more industries and other pharmaceutical companies encouraged to invest in India.
Absolutely, and that's very critical, Mr. Tambe, because when we talk about, the government's vision of a Viksit Bharat by 2047, the private sector has a huge role to play. Government can be a facilitator, but of course the private sector has to step in and has to step on the gas. Let me come to you, Mr. Sanjay Jain. Tell us a bit about your company and what are your thoughts on why private investment has sort of remained muted and what more can be done to sort of encourage industry leaders to come forward and contribute to this journey of a Viksit Bharat 2047.
Hi, morning everyone. About PDS, we are a global fashion infrastructure company. Typically, any apparel exporter would have a manufacturing in a low-cost part of the world and then would be exporting into the Western world. That's a traditional model. We believed that there is manufacturing in various parts of the world. Let's build a platform on top of it, which is agnostic to one particular location, can from time to time source from any location like India, Bangladesh, China, and so on. And I think my colleague just said that any private sector would wish to have things happen yesterday, and therefore really have a long gestation converted to a very low payback period. But having said that, I think what prevents us at times from going slow on capex is, are we reasonably sure about the policy framework to sustain? The FTAs have got signed. The Honorable Minister said that 70% of the world market is open to the Indian companies. And we want this phenomena to continue. We want the ease of implementation to continue. That is number one. Number two is that, in India, while in my sector, apparel, we invested into a factory in Tirupur, Knit Gallery, and we really want to scale it up. But while the textile parks have been announced, the PLI schemes have been announced, but right now the absenteeism of labor in India is 15 to 20%, while if I go to Bangladesh or a neighboring nation, it is just about 3%, 5%. So therefore, we will come forward and invest more when we find that there are initiatives beyond policies, there are initiatives beyond textile parks, but also now there is skill development being imparted. I think that is being done. So therefore, what could have prevented yesterday from doing it, today that initiative is very much being taken as well. So I believe if any observation is there that the private sector has refrained from or gone slow, I don't think there is any other reason. Lastly and very importantly, the Honorable Minister said in the morning that it's up to 2047 that India is looking at make in India and make for the world. That's about 25-year journey more to go. And therefore, we need patient capital. Putting in capex is fine, but that capex generating revenue, that capex generating cash takes a lot of time. Today, there is patient capital available as well. I think the combination of policy stability, combination of infrastructure being stabilized, combination of labor skill being imparted, and finally and most importantly, while this 1, 2, 3 may have a delay, if there is a patient capital supporting all of this, I don't think there is anything going to prevent private sector from investing further.
All right, so patient capital is one of the asks of the industry, and it's been there for a very long period of time. In fact, if you see startups, Mr. Jain, while they have continued to get funded, however, investors have become rather cautious whenever it is coming to deploying capital. Let me come to you, Mr. Suhas Donthi. You are the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Emmvee Group. Kindly introduce a bit about your company and also give us a perspective on the FTA aspect that has been spoken about. Of course, yesterday we did hear the Minister speak about the fact that how this is going to sort of lead convergences between Indian and global businesses. How do you really see that opportunity unlock? Because as of now, we have signed at least 5 to 6 FTAs and several of them are in the works.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity and having me here on the stage. I'm representing Emmvee. We are India's one of the largest solar PV module and solar cell manufacturing company, an integrated player. Just getting to your question of how this FTA is really going to impact is, today we're talking about manufacturing being a core of Indian economy, and what we need to understand is we're not competing for supplying just within India anymore. And we're also not competing with, like, companies like us. We're not competing with companies that are within the domestic market. We're looking at a competition that is out there in the west and the eastern part of the country. And we're looking to scale up to the level of being a high quality player, right? Like the world is right now in a geopolitical realignment. And this is the right opportunity for India. And I'm very happy that, as the minister said, that there is 70% of opportunity of the market open for us. And it's really important that the ecosystem in India is also gearing up for that. And I think you asked the right questions of what is stopping the manufacturing from the private sector to grow further. And I think it's really important to recognize that if we need to compete in the world on a global scale, right now there is no doubt that India can do it. Everyone accepts it, everyone appreciates it, and everyone is looking for this alternative supply from India that we can give. And now what people are looking for is more in terms of, can we compete in that depth of value chain in each product that we can, and can we offer the width of offerings that we can offer. And for that, I think for that leadership today, we need to have the ecosystem of technology coming in, the depth of manufacturing value chain, not just packaging, not just the surface level manufacturing. We need to get into the backward integrating of this supply chain, and that is going to be very important for India to move to the next level and to be a global leader and an exporter and the house of where all the products are coming from.
Absolutely. In fact, that is going to be critical. Let me come to you, Mr. Yashpal Sharma. You're the Managing Director and Chairman of the Skyways Group. You operate within the segment of logistics. So let me get in your thoughts, your opening thoughts on this session on building cost competitiveness via manufacturing, and especially how are you sort of looking at maximizing and capitalizing on the FTA opportunity that the government is sort of providing?
So, I'm going to just change a little bit of perspective here on this discussion. The beauty of logistics is that we get to see every industry in the world, and we are a truly global industry. So what we just don't get to see every industry of the world, we get to see what each industry is doing in every part of the world. So what I would, while we've been talking a lot about making India the factory of the world, the innovative side, the consumption side, I think the big opportunity for India and the future is making India the quick commerce factory of the world. We have to look at the consumer of tomorrow, not just look at a consumer of yesterday or today. The consumer of tomorrow wants the goods customized. They want the goods delivered as in yesterday. Two clear needs that you have, the customers of tomorrow. We need to create F2C, factory to consumer. That's the model that I believe India must invest in. India has the population. India, when you talked about the Indian manufacturing being at a smaller level than the 25% target, the Indian MSME sector is a very, very large sector. And we, as much as we want to promote PLIs and the other initiatives to large manufacturing, I think the real strength of India lies in the MSME sector. And how we will connect this MSME sector to every consumer in the world. There are 8 billion plus people around the world. When I talk about F2C, you have to think today from a very global perspective, and logistics makes it happen. It can today, if you look at the Sheins and the Temus of the world, today they did that. They created a great tech platform and they upstreamed into the various manufacturing clusters in China, and they're today delivering to every part of the world. This is what I think the India story should be, the quick commerce factory to the world.
I have a follow-up question to ask from you, Mr. Sharma. When you talk about quick commerce, yes, absolutely. We've seen the 10-minute delivery business spread all across. In fact, this is a major trend. However, brokerages have remained cautious as far as profitability of these companies is concerned. What is it that you see as a future trend, especially when we talk about quick commerce? Do you see more consolidation?
So quick commerce is a very large space. Currently, when we talk about quick commerce, we're largely talking of urban logistics.
But it remains concentrated.
It does. That's why I'm saying that it is very, very focused towards the bigger cities for now. The smaller cities or the villages are still being managed by the local cyclist and a local grocery store. I clearly see a lot of consolidation happening in times ahead. New players will emerge because there's a lot of learnings from the people who've invested in these businesses, have burnt some money, invested the money. And there will be a lot of learnings that we will be able to pick as an industry and improve upon how we can also make this business profitable in times ahead.
Right, but is this sustainable, the 10-minute delivery promise? Because we've seen from the government as well, and they've sort of, asked quick commerce companies to take off the 10-minute delivery promise.
Well, I think everything needs to come back from the consumer. If the customer demands something and that is logistically possible, it will happen. I don't think we as an industry or in terms of governance should or can actually identify what the consumer wants. So whether it is 10, whether it is 15, whether it is 20, the consumer will ask for it and the industries will be compelled to deliver.
Absolutely, and the 10-minute delivery trend is something that we are seeing percolate down to many other categories as well, including fashion, including Urban Company being another company that's also gotten into this business. But let me sort of switch tracks a bit and come to you again, Dr. Kumar. We were talking about the semiconductor policy of the Indian government. We've seen multiple shifts also globally. But semiconductor policy part 2, the India Semiconductor Mission part 2, is something that the industry is hoping for the government to roll out. What are your key expectations and where should we move on from ISM 1, the India Semiconductor Mission 1, to what should be incorporated in the India Semiconductor Mission 2 for the semiconductor ecosystem to become globally competitive over a period of time?
I think I kind of answered that before in my earlier. ISM 2.0 will start looking at design, products, made, and this is actually a interesting observation on the investment side. When you ask the question of private investment versus public investment, private investment is focused on returning and return to the shareholder. Public investment is focused on creating an infrastructure and jobs and economy growth. So private investment starts investing when there is stability and when there is clear indication of innovation and innovative products will actually be bought and purchased, and then the money starts flowing. So every industry, if you think about it, bio, government pushed, now lots of private investment going into it. So back to this ISM, the same thing is true here. In the first round, the focus was on quick starting the manufacturing. Second round, the focus will be on quick starting the design. And once that, of course, the first round will have to continue for many years, so it's not like one cycle got it, but over time, the private capital will flow. More and more companies will set up OSAT, more and more companies will set up fabs, the incentives will go down. Now, this ISM2, design will be the focus. And after that ecosystem is built, then the private capital will flow to take over. And one of the things we are trying to do is, when you think about design, in the semiconductor world, you are building 10,000 different chips or ICs or products. No single company can build it. Even no single company in the world builds it. So you need to create an ecosystem of hundreds of companies. Because if you are building even 100 ICs, that is a big amount for one company. NVIDIA only builds 5 or 6 chips. Intel only builds 5 or 6 chips. So so you have to create a vibrant ecosystem. I think that's what this new setup will.
Right, Dr. Kumar, that is something that the Indian government is also focusing on. We want to focus on advanced nodes. We want to focus on mature nodes as well in the semiconductor ecosystem. But you also mentioned about capital and investments. And one thing that the industry or experts or observers of the industry here in India have said is that we're not putting in enough capital. the government is not putting in enough capital as far as the India semiconductor mission is concerned, especially when compared with what the United States is putting or what China is putting?
I mean, it's mathematically it's the right comment, but India is putting in a large amount compared to what they are putting into other sectors. So to me, the government is doing the best they can. Of course, the industry will say, why don't you put in 5 times more, because China gave 50 billion or US gave 50. But those are bigger economies and they are at a different place. Here the government every government has a certain amount of capital they can deploy, and to me this is a significant deployment, what they have done. We can always want, we should do more.
Absolutely. And of course, it remains to be seen the kind of overall capex that the government essentially puts in ISM 2.0. And we do expect participation from very many companies in the semiconductor ecosystem. Let me come to you, Mr. Tambe. Mr. Tambe, you were essentially talking about manufacturing. And of course, gentlemen over here also spoke about FTAs as well. And we did hear the minister talk about FTAs and India's integration into global supply chains. What are your key expectations in terms of these FTAs? Because there are still concerns that probably we are giving out too much to the other sectors. And how soon do you think the benefits of these FTAs will start showing?
I mean, one of the things that has been again consistent in one of the most I would say tumultuous period of trade negotiations has been the fact that pharmaceuticals has stayed excluded all through, and rightfully so. So I probably that has been our least, I would say least expectation out of that negotiation, that that remains to be excluded from trade negotiations, because right to life, access to medication, access to health care should be a global right, and movement of medications across should not be restricted by trade barriers. And I think that's what we've seen happen. So we're very encouraged by how things have progressed. We also believe that this is also a reflection of India's role and in the global healthcare, overall economy. Because if you were to, and I just say this in a lighter way and hypothetically, if you were to turn off the innovation tap today, you would probably be left with the standard of care in treatments as it stands today. Okay? But if you were to turn the tap off on generics or the biosimilars that India does, then you would have 80% of the planet's health at risk. That's the impact that these products have on the health of the planet. So the implications are massive, and India is the leader in this space. We've done this since the 80s. The generics industry is a pride of the country. I mean, what they've done, what the generics industry has done for the world, has created a very, very clear image of India as the capital of the world for pharmaceutical, particularly generic pharmaceuticals. The need is to now transition that, and to a comment of my fellow panelists on logistics, today we ship a large volume of products from an export standpoint. What we need to see is that we shift that from a volume export to a value export. And that's the transition, that's the evolution, that is where we are at that cusp, where India is waiting to move forward to becoming that leading nation, Vikasit Bharat, as the Prime Minister has called it.
Right, Mr. Tambe. Mr. Jain, we talk about Viksit Bharat and, of course, competing with the rest of the economies and becoming one of the fastest growing economies from here on. But quality control is also going to be important, and especially matters in all industries, right? I mean, yesterday the speakers, of course, were talking about the fact that India really needs to sort of make sure that quality is top-notch, even as we increase our export potential and, of course, tie-ups with other countries.
Yeah, I think quality control is not a desire, it is a given of doing business. And if I talk about our apparel sector, quality has traveled a lot of distance from a manual physical inspection of the finished garments to actually making sure that the percentage of defects are actually eliminated even in the design and planning stage. So how does that happen? I think two things become extremely important: scale and usage of technology. I would use the word AI now. When I say AI, is that with the usage of tools, you are able to do a predictive analysis of the expected customer behavior. As a result, you have better designs. As a result, you have better sampling, and then better cutting and better finishing. So what it means is that in the entire value chain, the technology is aiding you to ensure that there is a good control and command on the value chain. And therefore, the percentage of defects likelihood at the rear end becomes abysmally low. So it is not just about manning at the end. It is not just about putting more people at the end. It is about from the conceptualization, planning, and the end stage. Quality to me also is not just product quality. Quality to me is also the reliability of supplies. We talk about in apparel sector, textile parks. We're talking about availability of yarn and fiber all throughout. But I touched upon earlier the availability of labor. For example, we compete with the neighboring nations. The absenteeism of labor there is about 3%, 5%. In our factories, about 15, 20%. But the government is investing into mega textile parks to see that we are making clusters available. But how is it linked to quality now again? Now the labor is there, the garment is manufactured, it takes 11 days for it to sailing in our country versus 2 or 3 days in the neighboring economies competing with us. That brings down the reliability. As a result, if there is a textile park investment, there is an infra development on the road and the port infrastructure. It improves the reliability of supplies. So therefore, as I said in the beginning, usage of technology to minimize, at the same time, investment in infra, labor, skill would improve reliability. To me, the output is quality control.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. You mentioned about, all of these pillars related to reliability, but how can labor absenteeism, that can be tackled?
It's an interesting one. I think let's first understand if I can use the word magnitude of the issue. 1.4 billion people, and still I talked about 15-18% absenteeism in Tirupur, the main hub of apparel, because there is so much competing industries where the labor could actually, go up to for employment. A small wage difference can actually make them shift. So therefore, how do you improve it? When I say mega textile park, there is a basic infra that is being taken care of in terms of the hostel facilities for the labor, in terms of the transportation facilities for the labor. Majority of the workers in the apparel sector are women. So are we investing into childcare? Are we investing into fair price shops? So therefore, if these givens are there, they tend to make the labor more sticky to the place of work. Then of course, the laws of land are ensuring that the minimum wages are being taken care of. One more important factor is, which you asked in the previous question as well. You said the private sector has been going slow on investments. I think we are getting more courage. With the 70% of world market opening up, with the infra point I addressed, we are getting more and more courage. So therefore, these basic necessities for labor to be having their hands on, we would be committing more capital to it.
Right. So as far as the textile sector is concerned, according to you, what should the government look at, especially when it comes to the textile sector, the 2-3 priorities that you hoped to be looked at?
I guess what needs to be looked at has already been looked at right now. I'm only going to request to hasten the pace of that. For example, number one, from fragmented small capacities, allow us to build large scale capacity. For that, through the textile park infra, we will get there. Allow us to get PLI beneficiaries, so therefore the schemes are there. We would like to make the most of it. Thirdly, allow us to avail the benefit of the infra investment that is happening. I said 11 days for a garment to sail versus 2 days, 3 days for a garment to sail in the neighboring economies, That's a lot of thing. And who's the customer for textile sector? It's a retailer, it's a brand in the Western world. They want predictability, they want reliability, not just cost. So I guess what needs to be done is already been planned. We can all debate about the pace of it, but I'm a believer that we are on the right track, and especially in India on a lighter tone, whatever you're planning, add 1 or 2 years more to that, I think then you're fine with it.
Right. Let me ask you one final follow-up question and then we'll move on. You spoke about FTAs, you spoke about the textile sector. What do you hope, especially as far as the FTA with US is concerned, now that there have been concerns which have been raised by brokerage houses, by textile manufacturing hubs about United States FTA with Bangladesh? You've also come up with a trade deal with Bangladesh. And many say that perhaps the competitiveness that India got on account of the reduced 18% tariff, that will be wiped out because Bangladesh has a 0% tariff clause.
I think we need to read beyond the headlines. When you talk about that there is a duty-free access Bangladesh has got to US, it clearly says that for the cotton that Bangladesh manufacturer is going to import from US, the export made out of that imported cotton is only going to be duty-free access to US. So I think the footprint says it's a small bit that would get benefit of that. But having said that, I think we are probably the 4th largest garment exporting nation to US, beyond China, Vietnam or Bangladesh, and now we are the 4th largest. We're almost at par income to duty. We can debate 1%, 1.5%. That really doesn't take competitive advantage away. But allow me to once again come back to the earlier factors that I mentioned about. I think if those things are taken care of and the reading of fine footprint, we are even with respect to neighboring nations.
We're in a good zone. And of course, the government has also diversified not just to one geography, but to several other geographies as well. And we do hope that the industry will take the benefit out of all these FTAs when they come into effect. The expectation is that the UK FTA is going to come into effect this year and the rest of them.
If you permit me,
yes.
I will add one more point here. I think these FTAs or duties that the nations would enjoy to the customer market may keep fluctuating. Important is to build a model that is agnostic to this. Let me not park all my eggs into one basket. That, okay, India is where I'm going to set up my manufacturing, or Bangladesh is the only one, or Vietnam is the only one. I have an eye on the US market. Let me as a private sector invest into neighboring 3-4 markets so that I'm ready to serve the customers from any geography. B, I'm ready to absorb the shock that may come tomorrow for any nation facing extra duty or so.
Absolutely. So de-risking is the key point that you're essentially mentioning here. Suhas, I'd like your thoughts on the fact that, de-risking is critical for businesses in this era of uncertainty. If you could speak about that a bit. And also, tell us what are the biggest challenges that you foresee for a company like yourselves?
See, absolutely. I mean, we've come a long way in our sector, right? We started manufacturing in 2006 of solar panels, where we were completely dependent on exports. So 100% of our manufacturing had to be exported because the market in India was not yet there. But as the market in India was born, there was more competition from the global manufacturers. So pretty much like for a small capacity installation of 6 gigawatt hardly, we used to pretty much import completely 98% of our PV modules or the panels that we talk, solar panels that we talk about. And today we are completely domestically manufacturing all our installations, although we have increased like 4 times in scale of the installation that's happening in the country. And this is something that is a massive stride that has happened. And, this particular sector, the way it's going, what is going to be important is the backward integration. Now, companies like us who have already started manufacturing solar cells, which is the biggest part of the value chain, where you're converting an undiffused silicon into a power-producing equipment, and that is something that we are already started doing now. Further backward integrating, increasing that depth, and like my fellow panelist said, creating the cluster is very important. Ecosystem where it's not just about the manufacturing facility itself, it is the supply chain that is related to that facility, which is the strength of the global China that we talk about, because the supply chain is available. That is the supply chain that needs to be built, MSMEs that needs to be involved, our education sector or the R&D that the institutes that's going to come, right? We don't have to innovate everything. There is a lot of problems that we need to face on becoming a leader, and that is the real industry problems that needs to be addressed. So that alignment between the private sector or the industry and the education is going to be very crucial. What the the policies that are there and what needs to be there to grow is the stability is something that we really appreciate, and that is something that we have seen the focus of the government either on Atmanirbhar or the Viksit Bharat. It is quite clear, and the alignment and the path towards is also quite clear. And we really appreciate the way the global markets are opening up for India. And I think this is going to be a very inflection point for how we become a nation of... See, as a nation, we are very blessed because we are not only dependent on an export of one particular region. We have an internal consumption. That is not many countries that we are looking at are able to enjoy that today. So as that kind of a nation, we are able to take that certain shocks of geopolitical shocks or any other nation, specific nation-related shocks. And that gives us an opportunity to scale in quality, in scale in manufacturing capability, and become the global leader that needs to be there.
Right. Let me ask you, Suhas, now, what kind of policy reforms are essentially needed in the space that you operate in for it to become globally competitive and, of course, to sort of shield from the kind of disruptions that we're seeing?
See, our sector is a completely fast-growing technology sector. So when I say fast-growing technology, the technology that we used to have maybe like a few years back, like 4-5 years back, is not there anymore. It's already evolved. So because of the evolvement of that technology, the asset turnover needs to be quite fast.
Okay, so since you're talking about technology, Yashpal, let me ask you, how are you integrating AI into your business and the kind of efficiencies that you've been able to generate and the scope of further efficiencies that you hope to achieve via AI and the agentic AI that gets deployed?
So AI is really helping a lot of businesses to propel. And when we were talking about the quick commerce logistics piece, AI is really helping them in a very, very big way. I think before we get to AI, what is very essential for us to see is how do we rope every possible stakeholder in the business through APIs? Because while AI largely is a lot about us as an organization so far, but it is very important that the data which is flowing all through the stakeholders needs to be very, very right and very consistent. Today, in the country, I think one of the big challenges that we have around multiple businesses is this. The ropeability of each one of the stakeholder is a challenge. While initiatives like API Setu are helping, and they are taking us leaps and bounds ahead, for us to really, truly become what I said, the quick commerce factory of the world, our capability to rope our data into a centralized repository is extremely important. While we at Skyways have always remained ahead of the market, we have been investing a lot in technology, and that technology has made us the market leader, clear market leader in the country. And we've invested in a lot of data cleansing to start with, because that was really essential. We had loads and loads of data, being the largest player, but it was really essential for us to cleanse the data, bring it to a level from where we can firstly internally consume it, and then be able to API with the other stakeholders around whether it is the customer or whether it is the consumer or another stakeholder in the industry. When we were talking about, the large production houses, I again would like to come back that India is a very, very successful fragmented story. We must leverage that. We must allow large manufacturers to use more and more of what in garment industry we call fabricators. So at a very local level, there is a lot of potential. And when Sanjay speaks about it takes 9 to 11 days for a garment to get sailing in a world where the consumer is walking somebody on the ramp or watching a new trend on Insta and orders right away and wants it as is tomorrow morning, something which is not yet manufactured. So imagine for that piece to take 11 days just to ship. Before that, there's manufacturing upstream and downstream to get to the consumer. So in today's world, we have to all think how our businesses will become faster. You were hearing about quality. Quality is quality brings the same customer back to you. Businesses are not built on new customers. Businesses are built on repeat businesses. So you get that on the back of good quality. And it's very essential that we are able to bring in that ropeability through AI, use technologies like API Setu and talk more about it. I think it's less spoken about what success API Setu has got to India. And a lot more can be done with it and how well we will structure the private sector into that and to customers around the world will be a game-changing story.
Absolutely, that's an important point that you've mentioned. Let me take that point up with you, Dr. Kumar. We're talking about AI. We've heard from professors, industry experts, and of course CEOs over the past 24 hours in terms of how this is going to sort of disrupt. In your ecosystem, what are the kind of disruptions that you're going to see, and what kind of work will get automated?
So, before I answer that, because it's in the AI story, there are users of AI. Everybody sitting here is a user of AI. Impact of AI is an immense increase in productivity, whatever implementation you're doing, whether it is supply chain, quality. And then there is a creator of AI, which is the software that goes underneath and the hardware that it is needed to run it. So in a way, we are the creators of AI, or companies like us. So NVIDIA is the creator of AI, Google. So we are in that space. And then we are also consumers of AI for our own manufacturing, for our own workloads that we want to optimize, our own resources. So everybody says, oh, somebody created an agentic and suddenly the services industry had a big hiccup. So that is because it was going to replace that software services component with the agentic. But the big impact is not over there. The big impact is in every other industry, whether it is aviation, fashion, energy. How is AI used?
Right. But what is India's strength? We're going to be seeing, the AI summit next week. And the question now is that, Anthropic, for instance, you must have also seen, it has completely disrupted the IT industry. Once again, the stocks have sort of plummeted. There's been a sea of worry on what the new tool is going to mean for IT companies. What do you think is India's strength when it comes to sort of global AI developments, and where is India placed in that?
Before you get to what is the strength, you have to understand where you are. And then you can figure out how to get there.
We're often told talent is our strength.
In this case, it's got to be different. So the problem right now, 20% of AI is based on data. 20% of the data is generated out of India. 2% of that data is stored in India. Only 0.2% of that data is monetized by Indian companies. So that is the problem statement. So now we have to figure out how to make 0.2% into 20 and 2% into 20 so that we can own and monetize and benefit from the data we generate. At least that. And then maybe we can monetize even the data others generate. But first we have to get there, right? So that is, I think, the goal of the AI summit. In order to do that, you have to have data centers built up. You have to have sovereign AI chips that control the data, because even if the Google data center is here, the monetization is happening somewhere else. So we have to figure out how to retain that data, monetize that data, help whether we use that monetization to make it cheaper for every industry, those are things that we have to work out. It's a journey. This is going to, but it requires just like the last push was, let's build fabs, and it created, oh, now India is going to become a semi-nation. I think this summit is critical in putting us in that, okay, India is going to be an AI nation. Now, whether we will take the lead or not, that's the next step. But
Mr. Tambe, what do you make of India's approach? I mean, we have largely been focused on going for a less resource-intensive model, especially when it comes to LLMs, and we want to power apps instead of what the United States and China, for instance, have taken up.
On a lighter note, just to begin with, since I'm not a tech expert, I can take some latitude with that. To Dr. Kumar's point, AI for me is all of us, which is the actual intelligence. Okay, so the actual intelligence is what will benefit from AI, which is augmented intelligence, is the way I would put it. We'll probably get to artificial at some later date. But I think one thing is very clear is that it is here to stay, and it is here to make things better or worse, depending on how you govern it. And I think there's a lot of conversation in that space, which is ongoing with experts who are looking at that. But from where we come from in the industry that we are, it's a highly regulated industry because you're dealing with human lives. We've bucketed it into two broad categories, okay, and that's productivity-related AI, AI that you can tangibly measure, saying if I was taking 900 hours to do it, I do it in 9 hours. That's a clear benefit, tangible advantage. Do it. And I think that is a clear win. I think AI is clearly there, and it's helping us do things. It also means we will have to reskill, and the workforce will have to do something which is at a higher level of intelligence than tasks that can be delegated to a machine. Okay, if I were to simply put it. And then there is the transformational kind of AI, which is connecting dots that don't exist. I mean, I know Dr. Kumar talked about data, but data exists. I'm talking about if you're trying to put a sequence in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and let's say 2 and 4 are missing, and connecting those dots when data isn't available is transformational AI. So it builds a model out of it and says that this is how it should be, rather than telling you this is what your data tells you it is. I think that connecting that in our world for drug discovery would be massively transformational, because India can just leapfrog from trying to do that entire drug discovery, which used to take 8-10 years, or more than 10 years and $1 billion or more, to use AI models and just leapfrog that whole space like we did with the telecom industry and went straight to 4G. So that's possible, and companies that will use AI are not going to be the ones who will be successful. But the scientists that will use those to decide what decisions to take will be the companies that will be successful.
Absolutely, and that is another level of skilling that we need to build upon. But more importantly, in the end, the key thing is to sort of monitor when it comes to AI, is that AI should democratize. Whatever it is that you're building, there should be absolute democratization and should not lead to K-shaped development or concentration of resources in a few hands. On that note, gentlemen, it's time's up. I'm being signaled. Thank you very much for taking the time out. In fact, if we have time for just one question, the gentleman over here wants to talk. Please go ahead, sir. If you could please pass on a mic to him.
Excellent, very good morning to all of you. Excellent keynotes, your presentations, excellent. I have 2 points to say. You mentioned AI based on data. You mentioned AI based on data, and data is a value asset and is a very major cost component. Data is not free. Everyone is going to the court to save their data, image, voice, everything, to save that. AI is very expensive. One side we are talking about the affordability, how it can be. When it is very expensive, data is very expensive. Can you share your data for this? it will become a business tomorrow. Everyone say, I want to give you the data, give me some money. Now the question arises, who will fix the price? Will there be any licensing? Who will be controlling body for this pricing, the data? Who will share? I want to share my data, to whom I should contact? This is my price. So negotiation part. So there should be some restrictions, conditions, policy matters needed. Now you talk about the FTA. It's good. FTA is a very good point. Even our Commerce Minister, he also urges the Indian industries, business communities to come forward and take benefits of FTA. Now the question is, where to go? How will I come to know the benefits, or how can I export it? So some policy matter should be there, some chapter in the foreign trade policy should be there, some book should be there. These are the FTAs India had with these countries, with these organizations, so that, and what are the conditions of that, how to fulfill the condition, how to export, get benefits of that, that is very important. Because there are two issues in the FTA, third country invoice or third party invoice, and the certificate of origin is a major issue. Just last line, the EU FTA, it's very good. Professional benefit will be there, but CBAM benefit will not be there, whether it is MSME or any other industrial sector. That will be the major hurdle. We have to focus on ESG. Every Indian industry, they have to be prepared. If they want to export to EU countries or any other countries, they have to prepare for ESG. We have to focus on that. Thank you, my regards.
Absolutely, sir. We take your feedback into consideration and do hope that the government is listening, even though when you talk about the CBAM issue, well, that was one sticky point as far as negotiations were concerned, but CBAM is not just restricted to India, it is applicable to everybody, and we do hope that that will also be taken into consideration sooner rather than later. But on that note, thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Sandeep Kumar, Mr. Shreehas Tambe, Sanjay, Jain, Suhas, Donthi, and Yashpal Sharma, appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you.